Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we start, we're knee-deep in quarterly reports, maybe deciphering market fluctuations, or just trying to find the signal in the noise of data science.
Right. We're usually analyzing power structures, economic indicators, that sort of thing.
Exactly. But today, we're doing something fundamentally different. We are trading the spreadsheet for the scroll, because the most profound, the most universally applicable truths, well, they often aren't found in physical reports.
No, they're found in the intimate, raw narrative of a single human life.
And that's where we're going today.
Absolutely. We're shifting from the analytical to the deeply, unapologetically narrative. And our source material today is it's this magnificent, almost epic piece of quiet heroism.
It really is.
It's a text that chronicles the emotional and physical struggle of a man named Somen in Kolkata. It focuses on his minute-by-minute battle to maintain his dignity against this overwhelming, crushing financial and professional burden.
It's a masterclass in human resilience, I have to say. I was immediately gripped. It's cinematics, though.
Totally cinematic.
From the moment you open the text, you don't just read about Kolkata, you feel it.
Yeah.
You feel the thick, humid air, the weight of the heat, and the even heavier weight of Somen's world just pressing down on him.
Mm-hmm.
The writer, Swapnil, has crafted a story that is so rooted in the specific reality of one struggling life. I mean, the specific train, the specific tea stain, yet it feels instantly tragically universal.
And that rooting is essential. It prevents the story from becoming, a mere parable.
Right, it makes it a tangible reality.
And our mission today is to dive deep into that reality, to dissect the narrative choices, the symbolism, and the emotional economy Swapnil has created.
The emotional economy, I love that phrase.
We want to understand how love, community, and sheer quiet determination become the only true, non-devaluing currency of survival when actual financial wealth just vanishes. So we're going to follow Somen's life across several critical junctures, starting at a time so precise it feels almost sacred. 4:37 a.m. This is his story of transformation. It really is.
He starts as the king of the office, a title he gives himself, ironically, because he feels completely invisible there. We're going to watch him redefine what heroism looks like when the battlefield is your own cramped apartment and the battles are silent.
So we ask you, the listener, right now, how do we redefine heroism when the battles are silent and the only crown you have is drawn in crooked red crayon? Okay, let's unpack this beautiful, difficult life, starting before dawn, in what the text calls the quiet architecture of dignity. We begin where the man begins, in his private world, where the narrative just immediately sets this incredible atmospheric stage.
It's so vivid.
The text states, very powerfully, Kolkata doesn't rise, it resists. I mean, what a line. It's not a gentle awakening, it's a city groaning under its own weight and history. And that specific detail, 4:37 a.m., it's so crucial. It feels like Somen's time. It's this sacred private moment he carves out before the chaos, before the noise, before the demands of his wife and daughter really begin.
Yeah, and that silence is deceptively heavy.
It is. It's the silence before the daily war begins, but it's also weirdly comforting. The sensory experience is just immediate and immersive. You have the ceiling fan creaking, failing to move the thick, relentless April heat, and he's tracing this persistent water stain on the ceiling.
Right, it's described as an old map he'd traced in boredom, in worry, sometimes in prayer. This immediate environment isn't just a backdrop, is it? It's like a silent character in his drama, bearing down on him just as his financial stress does.
That's a great way to put it. And this leads us directly into his morning ritual, which is, as you said, the architecture of his dignity. We see him carefully pressing his only office shirt.
The only one.
The only one. It's white, which already signals this desperate attempt at professionalism, but it's marred by that stubborn tea stain near the pocket, a stain that no amount of scrubbing or ironing can truly erase.
Let's just pause on that shirt and the stain for a moment, because this is such profound symbolism.
It really is. The single ritual of pressing the shirt is his small, desperate attempt to build armor for the day. He's fighting his internal echoing stress, which is crystallized by his manager's recent words. Sales are down, Somen. We need to talk soon. Ugh, the dreaded we need to talk.
He's fighting corporate pressure with domestic control. It's all he has.
It is an assertion of control, but it's also, an exercise in self-deception. He knows the stain is there just as he knows the debt is there, but he believes that maybe, just maybe, the crispness of the white fabric can present an image that isn't falling apart.
It's a quiet declaration of war against the chaos.
Exactly.
And this is where we extract our first key insight. Dignity is often preserved in the smallest, most repetitive rituals. If the outside world is chaotic, you rigidly control your immediate sphere. And his immediate sphere is fraught with these painful contrasts. The cramped space forces him to confront two irreconcilable identities. He looks into a cracked mirror, which shows his tired eyes, the rust stubble, the anxiety lines already etched in his forehead.
And right beside the mirror,
His old college certificate, first class in economics honors.
a monument to past promise. Its bold ink is now faded like the dreams it once carried. It is this constant, painful juxtaposition.
He sees the potential he once had, the man that society promised he could be, and then the man the cracked mirror reflects today. He's caught between a hopeful past and a weary present.
So where does the real validation come from? Because it's not from that faded certificate.
No, not at all. It comes from the immediate and the real. It comes from the moment his daughter, Mishti, stirs. She wakes up, recognizes his anxiety, and she pulls out this crumpled piece of paper, a crooked red crayon heart.
And she says what?
She says, "Baba, you smile like the sun." It's just a gut punch. The emotional shift is instantaneous and profound. The text notes Somen's vision blurs not just from tears, but from the compression of his emotions. Love, pride, and this crushing guilt over his struggles. That drawing, crooked and red, instantly becomes his new superior armor. It is validation that completely bypasses the need for corporate approval or financial stability.
It's the perfect antidote, isn't it? The world tells him he's failing at economics, but his daughter tells him he's excelling at life.
He folds that drawing so carefully, tucking it into his wallet, right next to her first birthday photo. It's his talisman, his true, non-negotiable currency. It's a moment of pure self-healing.
And this leads us directly to the quiet strength of his marriage with Ankita. Her love, the text emphasizes, is defined by restraint. Her smile isn't the gleaming, dream-filled one from their faded wedding photo.
No, it's one worn by time and worry, but no less true.
And this is where we explore that deeper, philosophical concept of love expressed through restraint.
Yeah, the text explicitly notes that her love lived in restraint in the questions she chose not to ask. This isn't a passive love. It's an active, nonverbal labor negotiation within a struggling marriage.
That's it. She chooses not to ask about the sales figures or the overdue bills because she knows the question will only compound his anxiety and guilt. Her silence is a protective measure, a profound act of shared burden.
And the evidence of this shared burden is everywhere in their small rituals, specifically the mismatched teacups. They share tea every morning, and she always uses the one with a cracked handle.
Without complaint.
Without complaint. She uses the damaged vessel so he can have the functional one. That tiny, repetitive detail speaks volumes about shared sacrifice and unspoken agreement. Every resource, even the mundane, is prioritized for the provider.
And as Somen watches her sew a blue blouse, every single stitch counts, just as every rupee counts for their stretched resources. So the first chapter concludes not with resolution, but with a deep conflict.
The external world is constantly demanding his collapse, but his internal world, a crooked crayon heart, a cracked teacup, a wife's silence, is actively, powerfully building him back up.
So he walks out the door with a quiet promise to himself and a smile that says, "I'm okay, we're okay, even if we're not." He needs that armor, because the text immediately transports him from the intimate quiet of 4:37 a.m. into the physical violence of the commute. And that is a jarring transition. That quiet dignity Somen has so carefully constructed is about to be violently tested in Section 2, the crucible of the commuter experience. We jump from the sacred silence of his home to the absolute chaos of the 8.03 local train. The description of the train is so visceral, it roars in like a beast of sweat and noise, familiar, ferocious, and never on time.
Someone understands this is not transportation. It's an endurance test. He doesn't prepare for a pleasant ride or even a seat. He braces for the fight not to get a seat, but just to hurt a little less.
This daily crushing of his personal space is preparatory humiliation for the corporate day ahead.
And then comes the high-tension scene, the moment of physical and emotional catastrophe. Someone is gripping the overhead rail, trying to ignore the chaotic environment, the elbow jabbing his rib, the foot crushing his toe, and then it happens.
His old fraying canvas bag, the one he probably inherited from his father, finally gives way. The stitching just rips open.
And his dignity literally spills onto the floor. White, plain rice, his lunch, his fuel, his carefully stretched resource scatters into the grime, the dust, and the boot prints.
The text describes the rice absorbing the dust like paper soaping ink. I mean, what an image. This is the physical manifestation of his shame, his financial vulnerability laid bare for 100 strangers to witness.
He drops to his knees, fumbling in a desperate, frantic attempt to save what he can. This isn't just lost food. This is Ankita's labor, his budget failure, and the evidence of his poverty scattering into the public domain.
He feels instantly 15 again, helpless, humiliated, invisible in the worst way.
Why 15? Because at 15, you have no agency, you rely on others. In that moment, Somen loses his adult provider agency. He's just a boy who dropped his lunch.
It is absolute exposure, and the sheer volume of people who simply ignore him, stepping over the scattered grains, reinforces his status as invisible.
But this scene, which begins as pure humiliation, becomes a profound study in human responses and the unexpected flicker of community kindness.
Yes, we see three distinct reactions that shape Somen's internal recovery, moving him from shame to resolve.
Let's analyze those three, because they represent different facets of societal reaction to poverty. First, there's the young man in crisp clothes and polished shoes. He looks down, and instead of helping Somen retrieve the rice, he quickly offers his seat.
That gesture, while outwardly kind, is ultimately rooted in pity and distance. It forces Somen to confront the stark, visible gap between their generations, the young man representing the success Somen never achieved.
The text says his feet feel heavier inside those tired old souls. The offer of the seat highlights his failure in the capitalistic sense. He doesn't need a seat, he needs his lunch and his dignity back. It's a painful exchange.
Exactly. Pity can sometimes feel heavier than indifference. But then we shift to the second figure, the elderly woman across the compartment. She doesn't offer pity, she doesn't offer a seat, and she certainly doesn't offer disgust. No, she offers recognition. She gives Somen a single, slow, understanding nod, a gesture of profound connection. The text notes this single nod carried more kindness than any words could offer. She sees him, recognizes the shared human struggle and the indignity of the situation without needing to fix it.
She validates his internal pain. And then there's the third one, the teenager. He hesitates, clearly uncomfortable, but then he bends down to help gather a few grains of rice before quickly slipping back into the crowd.
Right, that's acknowledgement without judgment, a small act of solidarity. The important realization for Somen is that the loudest, most pitying gesture, the seat, helped the least, while the quietest gestures, the nod, the shared fumbling, provided the true emotional anchor.
But through all this chaos, the one thing that steadies Somen is the realization that the loss of the physical rice cannot touch his core identity.
He feels the faint crinkle of Mishti's drawing in his shirt pocket.
Mishti's crayon drawing is truly his armor, his internal compass. It forces him to straighten up, to generate a smile, not a mask of false happiness, but something closer to hope.
It reminds him of the internal, invisible worth that the commute and the spilled rice cannot compromise. He can lose his lunch, but he cannot lose his identity as Mishti's Baba, the man who smiles like the sun. And the resolution of this scene is this fierce, almost epic act of domestic determination. Somen makes a quiet promise to himself. He will stop at the market, not for a new bag, but for a strong needle and thread. He will mend the bag himself. That line is so powerful it defines his approach to life. Sometimes holding things together was the bravest thing a man could do.
It's an analogy for his marriage, his finances, his very sanity. He's not going to replace the bag, which would require money he doesn't have, and erase the evidence of the struggle. He's going to repair it, asserting control over what he can.
It's resilience made tangible.
He walks the final blocks to the office, repeating his mantra, Chol, Somen, King of the Office. He knows the title is ironic, a defense mechanism, especially when Rahul from accounting snickers at his state, but he smiles anyway. He has his own secret crayon-drawn crown, and he's ready to face the antagonist, the gray office itself. Somen has moved from the communal violence of the train to the institutional violence of the office. He walks through the front door, past the executives in their spotless shoes and Bluetooth earphones, and enters the true void.
The office environment is deliberately depicted as just, sensory deprivation. It's gray desks, gray lights, gray minds. The color, the personality, the life, it's all systematically stripped away.
So Somen, who worked so hard on his crisp white shirt, is instantly rendered part of the furniture, like the dusty pedestal fan or the uncleaned water cooler. He's functional, necessary for the ecosystem, but fundamentally invisible. The text gives us a great detail. He works near the storeroom, under a perpetually flickering light that's been marked pending for months. And Somen, in a moment of dark humor, muses, maybe I should mark myself as pending too. Oh wow. He sees himself as a piece of equipment that serves a function but isn't worthy of repair or attention. and the stress arises immediately at 11:45 a.m. with the manager encounter. Mr. Bajoya calls him in to criticize a tiny two-digit margin error on page 3. Bajoya's reaction is a masterful illustration of corporate cruelty, not born of malice, but of this exhausting self-centered indifference that's amplified by his own internal pressure. Yeah, his eyes aren't angry, they're just tired. And this is the subtle sign of universal pressure. Bajoya is under pressure from his boss, and Somen is the safest target for the offloading of that stress. And Somen stayed late to cross-check, sacrificing precious hours with his family, but his effort is immediately erased by the manager's own pressure. Do you know how many reviews I've had today? 3. Someone's tired eyes are irrelevant compared to Bajoya's tired eyes.
The office demands invisibility when he is diligently performing his tasks and hypervisibility only when he makes an error.
But moments later, we see Somen's genuine competence. He catches a complex, costly budgeting error on the server and discreetly informs the team doing the essential, high-level work his economics honors degree trained him for.
And this sets up the immediate and painful contrast that defines corporate injustice. Suddenly, the air changes. The smell of pizza fills the office cheese, oregano, chicken, capsicum, a massive sensory disruption to Somen's meticulously rationed plain yellow dal and rice.
He watches Pratik and Arjun, the younger, flashier coworkers, celebrate. They're taking loud, self-congratulatory credit for Somen's quick thinking. The critical insight is lost in the noise, the high fives, and the endless meme sharing.
And Somen, the real hero of the moment, sits silently, his plain lunch suddenly feeling inadequate, cheap, and exposed. And the ultimate dismissal comes when Reena and Pratik are discussing the next assignment, and they just dismissively decide, give him the formatting stuff, he likes the quiet work. That sentence is just crushing. It invalidates 8 years of dedicated service, his intellectual training, his quick thinking. It confirms his role as the necessary, uncredited background worker, the human furniture. It confirms the manager's perception. Somen is useful, but only for the tasks no one else wants. But just when the injustice peaks, Somen opens his lunchbox and finds not the spilled rice, but the antidote to the corporate poison.
The second drawing, tucked into his wallet earlier.
This is the moment of transcendence, where Somen actively resists the reality of the office floor. The drawing shows a man behind a large desk wearing a crown made of stars, and the title.
Baba, you are the best boss and the king of all papas. Even if nobody sees it, I do.
The office sounds literally melt away. The noise of Pratik and the smell of the pizza fade. The crown of stars, drawn in crayon, becomes his true, undeniable title, the only form of validation that holds genuine, enduring value. He wipes his eye discreetly and leans back into his self-soothing mantra. Baba doesn't cry, but Baba smiles. This is not a mask of denial. It's a commitment to emotional survival. He's choosing the identity his daughter gives him over the identity his manager imposes. And the narrative then provides a counterpoint to the manager's indifference. Validation from experience. Anil, sir, the quiet veteran, approaches him.
I see you. I've been there too.
Anil is Somen's future. A man who survived the system but chose to remain human. Anil tells Somen that the work eventually speaks louder than the credit. It's a crucial acknowledgement of shared struggle that Somen desperately needed.
But the scene ends on a powerful, deeply analyzed note of dignity and pride. 2 slices of cool, dull orange pizza leftovers from the celebration Somen was excluded from are placed near his desk.
He's starving. His rice was spilled on the train. Every rational part of him should devour them.
But he doesn't touch them. And this is the essential point. Why the refusal? Anil sees him, and the coworker saw his lunchbox was sparse. But the pizza wasn't offered. It was left. Yes, taking the pizza would acknowledge his invisibility and his desperation. Refusing it asserts his pride, his self-worth, even in the face of hunger.
His dignity is worth more than that slice of cheap corporate pizza. It's a fierce, quiet, internal victory. He walks to the washroom, practices the painful line, Baba can't get them this month, Mishti, maybe next time, and leaves with that crooked smile, not for them, but for himself and for the king with the star crown.
We now shift gears completely, moving out of the hostile, transactional corporate economy and into the sanctuary of his personal life, what you call the economics of quiet love and sacrifice.
This is where Somen's true wealth is measured, not in rupees, but in non-monetary transactions and community bonds. The scarcity of money just sharpens the emotional returns on small acts of kindness. The source text gives us these beautiful vignettes. The sweetness of Kakima's kheer, a celebratory dessert from today's puja, pressed into his hands. He may not have a new car like his cousin Ronodip, but he has the priceless warmth of community nourishment. This kheer is not payment. It is validation of his belonging.
And speaking of validation, he finds a moment of true self-worth by helping Rahul from downstairs with his math homework. Soman, the invisible employee, briefly steps out of the shadow and becomes a teacher.
And he's utilizing his unused economics honors skill. This is a critical moment of reclaiming his intellectual identity. He tells the boy, numbers are like friends. Sometimes they just need the right introduction.
He's affirming his own value outside the office structure, reminding himself and the boy that he possesses a sophisticated transferable skill patience, clarity, knowledge that the gray office actively ignores. He's finding dignity in pedagogy.
But the absolute centerpiece of this emotional economy has to be the tiffin box love letter.
Oh, Ankita's note. A piece of paper torn from an old calendar, the ink slightly smudged, hidden beneath the lid. He finds it when he's rinsing the dishes, a quiet moment of vulnerability. And the note is so simple, but devastatingly powerful. You hold us up, Somen, even when your heart is heavy. Thank you for choosing us. He sits down heavily, pressing the letter to his chest. This note is the proof that he was still alive, still worthy of love and respect, despite all the failures. It is the emotional equivalent of a full paycheck.
It offers security where money cannot, and their communication transcends language. Later, Ankita is sewing, focused on her own labor of resilience, and she reaches out, her foot quietly touching his knee.
That action speaks without needing sound. Her foot stays there, a tangible, enduring connection, a confirmation of presence and shared commitment. It's vital in a marriage strained by unspoken financial fear.
Unfortunately, that emotional fortitude is immediately tested by a stark reminder of reality. The sunk at the door is the electricity bill read, final notice.
Emotional fortitude cannot stop a physical threat like a bill. This forces the transition to Chapter 6, the health crisis, proving that his carefully constructed emotional fort is vulnerable to external forces.
Mishti's cough escalates quickly into a fever, quickly diagnosed as possible early pneumonia. Somen makes an instantaneous, non-negotiable decision. He calls the boss.
And he doesn't ask for permission, he states, I won't make it today. His family priority overrides his professional fear. For the first time, Somen exercises radical agency in his work life, even if it carries consequences.
The doctor's words, early pneumonia, just scans shatter Somen's composure. The bill is astronomical. This forces the ultimate symbolic sacrifice from Ankita.
The sale of the gold chain, her wedding gift from her father. The internal monologue provided by Swapnil here is just devastating. She's our only gold. That moment is so heavy with symbolic weight. She holds the chain to the light, closes her eyes, and kisses it once. She is trading a tangible memory, a piece of inherited worth, for her daughter's immediate health. This isn't just a financial transaction, it's a symbolic declaration. The material past is less important than the living future. This crisis, however painful, activates the community safety net, which reinforces Somen's actual wealth structure. Mrs. Zen mentions clinic discounts. The pharmacist suggests the cheaper generic version, protecting his budget.
It shows the true nature of the non-monetary economy Somen lives in.
And then, surprisingly, the corporate world intrudes again, but this time with humanity. Arjun, the loud co-worker who celebrated over the pizza, offers Somen money when he sees Mishti wheezing outside the clinic.
He recognizes the shared helplessness of fatherhood. Arjun's facade cracks completely. He is forced to acknowledge Somen's humanity and his own vulnerability. He says, I've been there. She's your world.
This realization that everyone is fighting a quiet battle, even the flashy co-worker, provides Somen with crucial non-judgmental support. And this is the moment to return to that crucial distinction. Somen's pride was fierce when he refused the 2 slices of left pizza. He maintained his professional dignity. But here, with his child's life at stake, his pride crumbles. His child's life is worth more than any concept of dignity. He accepts Arjun's help. The difference is, the pizza was an offense to his professional worth. Arjun's money is a lifeline offered to his child. The family bends under the crisis, but the final image on Ankita and Somen sitting beside Mishti's bed, holding hands, shows they have not broken. We move now to Section 5, the parent-teacher meeting, or PTM, which serves as a collision point between Somen's private struggle and his public perception.
He takes a half day, sacrificing pay, because Mishti's hope for him to attend is so bright, so full of trust. He cannot fail her in this simple demonstration of support.
Mishti's pride is the core emotional labor here. She grabs his hand, skipping like they were walking into a palace. She is utterly proud of him, of his presence, his commitment, entirely oblivious to the worn shirt and the tired eyes.
Her pride is a validation of his effort that overrides any possible professional failure. And the PTM starts beautifully. The teacher praises Mishti's kindness, sharing her sandwich, drawing the banyan tree for the class.
Somen's chest fills with something warm and unsteady, realizing that his quiet lessons about morality and helping people have been absorbed by his daughter. This is his legacy.
But the scene twists violently into social humiliation. The teacher mentions the upcoming winter cultural program and the request for the 500 rupee shawl contribution for the decorations.
And that number, 500 rupees, forces someone back into the cold reality of his budget. His internal reckoning is immediate and devastating. 500 rupees is the money needed to fix the leak patch in the ceiling, or 2 days' worth of stretched leftovers. It's a massive decision for a man operating on zero margin. This internal cost leads to the quiet refusal. Not today.
And the subtle cruelty follows immediately. The knowing glance shared by the other mothers, the mothers who are discussing Goa vacations and private coaching.
This juxtaposition is designed to sting. The shame is compounded by Somen's inability to afford even the 80 rupee school magazine. That 80 rupee magazine represents knowledge, connection, normalcy, and he can't even afford that small entry point.
Somen's pride is burning, and he feels the shame creeping in. But this is the narrative climax of the PTM, where Mishti, realizing her Baba's distress, takes center stage and redefines wealth entirely.
She looks up at the contributing woman and then addresses the room, delivering this stunning piece of moral philosophy disguised as a child's speech.
She says, Miss Roy told us yesterday that the best gifts don't cost money. She said kindness and respect are the most expensive things because not everyone can buy them.
The room just freezes. The adult conversation about financial contribution is silenced by a child's simple, undeniable truth about moral capital. And then she delivers the punchline that validates her father's struggle completely. My Baba gives those to everyone for free. That's why I tell my friends he's the richest Baba in our whole building. That's it. Mishti turns Somen's financial scarcity into moral abundance. She elevates him above the mothers talking about Goa. She crowns him the richest man in the building, not because of what he owns, but because of what he gives away freely.
The teacher smiles. The other parents soften. Somen realizes his true treasure is his daughter's perception of his character.
But the financial anxieties don't just vanish, which leads us to the pujo that wasn't in Chapter 7. Pujo, for listeners who might not be familiar, is the most important festival of the year in Bengal, a celebration of Durga Ma, requiring new clothes, elaborate decorations, and significant expense.
It is a moment of public communal celebration of prosperity and hope, and Somen is crippled by his guilt over the pink frock promise he couldn't keep.
The thought of Mishti being hurt by another child asking why she didn't have new clothes just cuts him deep. The weight of his inability to participate in the traditional pujo structure is immense, but Ankita again steps in with quiet resilience. She starts stitching a new dress from old, reclaimed cloth. The text highlights a profound detail. The tiny drop of blood on the fabric where the needle pricked her thumb. Her love is literally sewn into the garment. Her sacrifice is tangible and physical. And this sacrifice leads to the most profound shift in the narrative, the Khushi Utsav, the festival of happiness. Instead of mourning the lack of a proper, expensive pujo, Somen initiates the creation of the homemade Durga Ma with a shoebox, tea lights, and crayons. This is the ultimate lesson in the redefinition of wealth. This wasn't about having less and compensating. This was about creating a purer, more personal, sacred space, born of empty pockets but full hearts.
Mishti draws two wide, kind eyes on the shoebox eyes that see everything, including their struggle and their love.
The ceremony itself, the simple Rabindra Sangeet, the humble muri with mustard oil, is elevated by the sheer force of their love. And Mishti declares, I like this more, 'cause we made it. She recognizes that ownership and effort generate a superior kind of joy than consumption.
That night, Kakima's unexpected offering of prasad validates their DIY pujo. Somen realizes that love doesn't need money to be real. Joy doesn't need shopping bags to be true. This strength gained through family ritual, through the Khushi Utsav, arms him for the final corporate and financial assaults that are coming. The narrative immediately pivots back to the professional world for Somen's final test. And let's look at Somen's biggest career disappointment in Chapter 8, the internal promotion. He didn't ask for the moon, just a supervisory role, 2,500 rupees extra, and crucially, a chair that turns. He prepared meticulously for 3 weeks, rehearsing handshakes, trying to speak louder, studying management techniques. He attempted to transform into the corporate ideal, shedding his invisibility. But when the notice goes up,
It's Saikapta Younger, MBA, flashier, representing the new guard that values presentation over experience.
the cold finality of the bulletin board is a bureaucratic execution. No explanation, no mention of his 8 years, his perfect dependence. It's a total erasing of his identity. Somen feels the profound sting of being utterly unseen by the system he served loyally.
The text then captures the immediate emotional consequence by framing it against the weather. The heavy rain starts immediately after the rejection, the sky cracking open and pouring, the kind that falls when clouds can no longer hold their sorrow.
Someone waits outside Mishti's tuition, his old umbrella leaning like a tired old man. The external weather mirrors his internal despair. And Misty's innocent question, just as he is reeling from the rejection, is the last thing he needs. Why don't you have a big chair at work, Umar? This is Somen's final philosophical resignation and acceptance of his place in the system. His response is transformative. He says, I have a small one, just enough to see in all directions.
He turns the failure into a lesson about perspective and necessity, acknowledging that the big chair restricts your view to just the top, while his small chair allows him to see the whole world around him, including his daughter waiting in the rain.
But the pressure isn't just internal or corporate, it's societal. We see this externalized through Somen's mother during her visit in Chapter 9. She brings the love of Sandesh, but also the heavy burden of comparison, contrasting him unfavorably with cousin Ranodip in his silver Santro car. And that critical line of judgment is delivered with such subtle cruelty. A man can't live on poems and patience forever. That encapsulates Somen's deepest fear, that his commitment to kindness and love will ultimately fail his family financially. The mother's pressure is the voice of the world saying, you are a good man, Somen, but good men don't pay the bills.
And what anchors this turbulent scene? Ankita's quiet strength. She doesn't engage in the argument. She continues sorting rice, picking out stones one by one. Her silence is not submission, it's focus.
It is the steady foundation, the kind of quiet that holds a family together when words might tear it apart. She's doing the necessary, meticulous work of maintaining their life one grain at a time. This all builds to the absolute peak of the financial crisis in Chapter 10. Payday arrives, Somen's moment of hope, but at the bank, the passbook is slid back with a single, devastating word: insufficient balance. The delay is due to a technical error for SBI accounts. Just cruel, impersonal, institutional irony. The immediate, visceral consequence: grocery store debt. He has to ask Pradeep Da, the shopkeeper, for credit. Pradeep Da records the transaction, which is described as a record of faith between two struggling men. It emphasizes the power of community trust over institutional failure. But then comes the final unignorable blow. The school fee notice. 4,500 rupees due in 3 days, threatening Mishti's name removal from the rolls. The narrative takes us from existential dread to a small, critical moment of grace back at work in Chapter 11. Rajiv mocks Somen again, trying to assert his dominance. But Anil, the quiet veteran who previously offered only silent acknowledgement, steps in with a firm defense.
He says, that's enough. This isn't right.
That small, quiet, but firm defense, not credit for work, but respect for his humanity, is Somen's final validation from the office world. It proves that the patience and kindness Mishti praised do occasionally register.
This small act of respect gives Somen the courage he needs to look beyond the office, to realize his true strengths lie elsewhere.
And then the true heroic climax occurs. Somen is walking home in the storm, lost in the dread of the school fee notice, until he sees a splash of color. Mishti is waiting, soaked with her handmade badge.
My Baba is my hero.
The power of this moment forces the emotional breakthrough. He drops to his knees in the puddle, tears mixing with the rain, unable to distinguish between the two.
This smile came from somewhere deeper. It is a smile born not of delusion or forced optimism, but of unbreakable love and rediscovered purpose. He realizes that the job is temporary, but the title of hero is permanent.
And this leads to the plan, the synthesis of his entire journey. The plan crystallizes immediately, built on the lessons learned from helping Rahul and the realization of his own unused education.
Somen writes down his new direction, teaching neighborhood children in the evenings.
He is finally marrying his past academic success, that economics honors degree, with his acquired patience and community standing. This is a sustainable, dignity-affirming income source rooted in his true overlooked strengths.
He will no longer be dependent on the gray office. The final smile Somen gives is the synthesis of everything. A smile full of broken dreams and unbreakable love, of worry and courage. He has fully resigned his identity as the invisible employee and embraced his true self-defined title, King of all Papas, and now community teacher. He found his way forward by leveraging his inherent, overlooked intellectual and emotional assets. True strength, he finally understands, didn't come from money. It came from love, the kind that makes ordinary people do extraordinary things.
What an extraordinary, profound emotional journey crafted by Swapnil. The depth and incredible detail provided in this narrative gave us an unparalleled, intimate view into the quiet heroism of everyday life.
Somen's story is a true epic of resilience, demonstrating that the human spirit can flourish even when the balance sheet is failing.
And if we synthesize the key takeaways from this text, they become incredibly instructive lessons for anyone facing overwhelming pressure, regardless of geography or background.
First, we learned that dignity is often preserved in the smallest, most repetitive rituals. For Somen, this was the carefully ironed shirt, the quiet commitment to mend the bag himself. It's about asserting control over the controllable, no matter how small.
Second, love is expressed through restraint and quiet acts. We saw this powerfully in Ankita's silence in the face of his struggle, the use of the cracked teacup, the gentle foot touching his knee. These are powerful, unspoken reassurances that carry immense emotional weight.
Third, true wealth is not measured in transactions. The Khushi Utsav, the creation of the Durga Ma with crayons in a shoebox, demonstrated that joy, love, and spiritual fulfillment can be created from scarcity, triumphing over the looming financial need for the 500 rupee shawl fee.
And finally, and perhaps most importantly, finding your way forward involves looking backward to move forward. Somen's new path was paved using his old skills, his economics honors and patience repurposed into a new, community-focused, and deeply satisfying role as a tutor.
He used the past promise to build the future reality. The broken smile becomes the ultimate symbol of resilience. Somen's story isn't about running away from his difficult life. It's about building an emotional fort strong enough to withstand the financial pressures.
That smile acknowledges the pain, the broken dreams, but chooses courage and love anyway. It is an act of fierce, daily determination.
And this leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you, the listener, as you reflect on Somen's journey. We've seen Somen, the invisible employee, become the community tutor, finally leveraging his true, inherent strengths outside the corporate structure that rejected him.
So what hidden strength or skill do you possess? That forgotten degree, that latent passion, that quiet patience, that, if leveraged outside the defined expectations of your current role, could redefine your sense of purpose and ultimately your sense of personal wealth. Think about your own crayon drone crown.